your comments, and we do have time for a few questions, and we've got a mic at the table for this session where our speakers can respond quickly. So do we have any questions?
I want to start off by saying that, Deb, you're an excellent clicker. So thanks so much. You know, when I started this job, we had a lot of my southern colleagues come down to Forsyth, where our office is at here in Georgia, and we had a discussion around best practices in our industry associations, as well as a discussion around a lot of regulatory issues. And one of the ones that came up was the truck weights in the federal. It was right after the vote. And one of my colleagues was adamant that he felt that with enough lobbying, we could turn 30 congressional votes in our favor, which I think was a margin by which we lost, or something close to that. And so my question is, from your perspective, do you think it was we could have lobbied harder for it from just the not from FRA, but from just the grassroots, state by state, and been successful? Or were the powers of the railroads and other things that you mentioned something that we wouldn't have been able to overcome?
Thank you for that question. I think it's always good to reflect and think if we could have done things differently. I think that we had a powerful lobbying group, but I'm sure, you know, in the end of the day, maybe there was some rock we didn't turn over. But I think the bigger issue is the railroads, and they have a lot of money. They've got a lot of advocates that are willing to come to Capitol Hill. They flew in a lot of law enforcement people who are part of the safety coalition and against bigger trucks. You may have seen a Wall Street Journal article that we were able to get the attention raised on that a lot of these people that were coming in and lobbying Congress were actually getting their way paid for them. And they were using some inaccurate facts. And so I think the data went against us. I think the Department of Transportation cost us a lot of harm too on their preliminary study. So at the end of the day, I don't think it was about our lobbying. I think it was about a louder voice on safety. And we know in our industry, safety is a really big deal, and safety is a really big deal on Capitol Hill. And when you go in and lobby a member of Congress and you're coming behind a family that's had an accident with a truck, it's a hard situation to be in, and it's an uncomfortable situation to be in. But we have a lot of data on our side that it is safer to get these trucks off these local roads and get them onto the interstate where they belong. And I think the other thing to keep in mind, you know, as we work on this issue is that there are some members of Congress that we will not turn around. We will not. They are wedded to the old truck weight reform of 80,000 pounds. And as good as our data gets and as good as our arguments get, we're not going to be able to turn around. And some of those that we couldn't get turned around, I think, is that group. So it's tough. But I'm hopeful that we're going to just keep educating and make a difference.
So a follow-up question, if there is a shift in control of the Senate or the House, looked like it was unlikely, but does that bode better or worse for our chances?
Well, I mean, that's a really good question. I think the opportunity is we'll get some new members. We have an opportunity to educate and get in there first. That caucus, I think that Jane talked about, is so important. And so education is going to be really big with the new Congress. But we also I think we have an opportunity to broaden the argument. And the argument is going to be on workforce capacity. And we've got data, and I was very excited to see Sean's data. But Chris spoke to the American Trucking Association's data. We've got a huge problem on our hands. And so, you know, we've seen other parts of our, business models make technological advancements that we've seen how in harvesting, how much that's improved what we're able to do with less people. But Congress can't ignore we've got a big problem, and they can't ignore that trucking is a fundamental part of our ability to be a effective keep businesses effective here in the United States. Trucking is huge. And the other argument that we're going to make even stronger, and we didn't get smart enough on this, I don't think, until later, but that is railroads are always watching us. And I mean, they're sometimes up on the hill before we even know they're up there. But we're learning that if we stay within that 500-mile radius, we're kind of staying out of their territory because they're not so much interested in the short hauls. And so I think we're probably going to work harder on that. How do we, now that doesn't help a lot of our coalition partners that we work with because they want the long hauls. But for our industry and a lot of the ag businesses, we may start looking out for opportunities to carve ourselves into that shorter haul distance to make a difference. Because as we saw on Sean's side, the logging side of our industry and trucking, we're at a disadvantage. So we need to find some ways to make a difference. Yep. Thank you for the question.
All right, thank you. Additional questions?
Yeah, Chris, you mentioned this pilot program for new drivers that's related to ag. And can you give some specifics on that? Are any logging companies participating in that program, and just get some more detail on it?
I think Deb might be able to better speak to that.
Okay.
New to that. You know, that's a good question, and I'd like to follow up on that. We probably should survey and see how many people are taking advantage of that. I mean, we also got into that veterans now don't have to pass all the testing that other drivers have to become a truck driver that you have to go through. Veterans that are very experienced in very dangerous situations on driving trucks we've been able to get them to not have to go through that same type of testing and scrutiny. But it's a good question. I hope they are, but through our publications and stuff, we can easily find out.
Just, first thanks, because I'm running Team Safe Trucking.
Yes, yes.
Make a bit of a presentation at your conference, and but since then, we've made a lot of progress. You know, the organization has grown, developed, and we're starting to bring out some deliverables, and got our first big presentation to a logging group in Arkansas next month. We've kind of got now the prototype for bringing in training new employees to come into the industry, both working in the woods as well as getting CDLs. This process would really tie nicely to it.
It would.
So I'd love to follow up with you, get some more specifics on it, and be able to incorporate it into what team is about.
Well, let me just say, you all are doing great work, and FRA is excited to be a part of that, and I think I'm really glad you stepped up to the plate and are doing what you're doing. If you're not familiar with what he's talking about, I hope you take a moment. What's the website where you all?
Well, I'd like to publish that. It's Team Safe Trucking.
Team Safe Trucking, that's right. Yep.
And right now that's a postcard.
Right, right.
The website goes live in about 30, 35 days.
Well,
and it'll be, it'll actually have a toolbar that you can
Right.
start getting deliverables on.
Well, let's touch base, and FRA definitely wants to help highlight that when you're ready to go live. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Troy?
Yeah, I'd be interested from the four people from the associations. Given the choice, when you're up on Capitol Hill, would you rather be up on the Hill with a high-powered CEO from the industry, with PAC money support, or Miss Wanda?
I think it goes both ways. So I formerly worked for Congressman Steve Shabbat, who was the chair of the House Small Business Committee, and I think the general sentiment amongst most members of Congress is they do like visiting with the high-powered CEOs, but the people that resonate the most with them are the small business owners, and I think that's a much easier messaging piece publicly and on Capitol Hill if you got a host of small businesses behind you, because small businesses are the backbone of society. They employ the most people, and it's a hard message to kind of counteract when you get the small businesses on your side. So
I would agree with Chris. It depends a lot on the member and what influences that member. And it's a lot of lobbying really depends on relationships. So if you have a CEO that has a really close relationship with that member, you might start there and then build out your conversation with that office from top down. Usually we go from bottom up, so we start with a staffer, we start going in with experts, and it could be anyone from, from the industry who wants to come in, and then we might end with a CEO coming in and talking to a member. Usually we bring in a CEO to talk to a member, whereas, we'll bring in other people in the supply chain, or in a company to talk to the staffer, but depends a lot on the office, right? And who has the relationships and what kind of story you're trying to tell. I would say in general, if you can show that it's not just about one company or one particular tree farmer, if you can show that you have cross-cutting impacts across many different parts of the supply chain, you really are more impactful when you lobby. Would you agree with that?
I think it also makes for easier hearings and briefings on Capitol Hill when you can kind of assess the supply chain effects and just kind of show the broad impact as far as just having a more niche subject matter. So.
I've taken lots of groups to Washington, and you have to be together. Who's going to talk about what? You can't go on and on and on about a subject. You've got a short time there. You're probably going to meet with staffers and so forth, but they are very interested in your point of view. They want to know why you're there. They want to know what specifically they can do, and you need to be precise and just not ramble on. And be careful what you say. Some stories are good, some stories are not good to tell up there. So we just have it, I don't want to say scripted in general, because these folks won't like that, but if you're going to take a group to Washington, think about who you're taking, and you can always take Miss Wanda. I'd take her anywhere to talk to anybody. But that's important, not somebody who just rambles on about something. Let me quit.
If I can just do a little plug, we all do fly-ins, and I think FRA's next fly-in will be fall of 2017. But we do script you a little bit. We give everyone a little pocket card you can just stick in your, shirt pocket or coat pocket, and just give you the highlights. I mean, of course, the most important thing is we'll give you the highlights of what the ask is and what we want to have passed. But what we want to do is not get you too scripted, because we want to tell you to tell your story. They want to hear, and I think that Chris was speaking to that. They just want to hear, what you're experiencing and why it's a problem for you. And that heartfelt story is the one that gets remembered, I think.
Just one more comment. I know we're running short on time, but I wanted to thank all the groups that are here. And Dan, I know we haven't worked as much together, but definitely NAFO, the U.S. Lumber Coalition, and FRA are huge partners for us in GFA, and we're very blessed that they took time out of their busy schedules to come down and be with us and our members here and share their thoughts. So on behalf of GFA, a heartfelt thank you for everything you do for us.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us and filling us in and the comments on public policy issues that are real. They're out there. They're work we need to work on. And I want to thank each of you as well for what you're doing to represent the interest of forestry at the national and federal public policy arena. Really appreciate that. And we do have a token of appreciation for you joining us today. And thank you for being here. Folks, it's break time. I will remind you, we start back at 4. And remind you to fill out your CFE and CLE forms if you need those. So thank y'all. One more round of applause for our speakers, please.